shows the inside of a game show studio with Phil Hartman standing in a suit. Hartman: hello, welcome back to our paranormal game show, Let's Get Crossing. I'm your host, Philip Seymour Hartman. For those new to the program, how our show works is this. We allow our contestants to have the exciting experience of crossing over through a psychic medium and talking to a deceased person. However, instead of just having small talk with the spiritual realm, our contestants are given the chance to ask the tough questions from whatever spirit they choose to speak to through cross-examination. Our contestants will have the ability to cross over in order to cross-examine through our psychic medium, Danilo Kovalenko. Shows John Belushi sitting at a seance table with a turban on. Hartman: our psychic medium is a Ukrainian refugee who first showed his prescience years ago by predicting that Vladimir Putin was an asshole. Are you ready to cross-examine our contestant over to the other side, Mr. Kovalenko? Belushi's eyes roll up into his eyelids, and he says, your mother knows you pawned all of her stuff, and that's why she had to be moved from the nice retirement home to the state-owned facility where she died. Hartman: that mouthy bitch. Anyway, our first contestant today to get to cross over via the powers of our psychic medium in order to cross-examine a spirit of their choosing is a man by the name of Mark Lee. Shows Chris Farley sit down at the seance table with Belushi. Hartman walks over to Farley, grabs him by the shoulder and says, Mark here is an Asian entrepreneur suffering from vitiligo as well as a slow metabolism. So, Mark, what spirit do you plan to cross-examine? Farley: my mother's family comes from Hiroshima. My mom was lucky enough to have been sold by her family to a Singapore sex trafficking ring, which I understand was pretty ritzy. So she wasn't there herself, but her entire family was still there and killed by the atomic bomb. Therefore, I want to cross-examine the man whose decision it was to drop that bomb, former United States President Harry Truman. Hartman: you heard right, folks. Mark here is going to get the chance to ask former President Truman some tough questions about the use of the atom bomb. A glass enclosure descends from the ceiling and surrounds Belushi and Farley sitting at the seance table. Hartman: folks, now that we've put our contestant in a soundproof enclosure, we can now let you know what is really going on. This isn't really a game show where you actually cross-examine who you choose to, but instead it's a mean-spirited idea where we hire a spirit with the same name as whom the unwitting contestant wants to cross-examine in order to portray the famous spirit with the same name. Norm Macdonald comes out and stands next to Hartman. Hartman: standing next to me is the spirit of Harry Truman. No, not the former haberdasher and 33rd President of the United States, but instead a crooked addiction counselor from Ames, Iowa, who, despite his occupation, had a terrible drinking problem during his life. Is that right? McDonald: yes, that is correct. After work, where I browbeat people with addiction problems, I would drink a lot and then drive around all night looking to pick up women. Although, instead of picking up women, I only picked up DUIs. However, particularly later in my life, some of the officers arresting me actually were women themselves. Therefore, I would try to pick them up over my shoulder. Word on the street is that I was such a pain for the cops to deal with my first name being Harry, they would refer to me in jest as Dirty Harry. Hartman: anyway, so as you just heard, while our unwitting contestant will be cross-examining a man named Harry Truman, it won't be the American president who heroically ended the Pacific Theater with not one but two bangs, but instead a counselor nicknamed Dirty Harry who drunkenly assaulted female police officers. Our Harry Truman is going to go backstage and feed our psychic medium with the answers to the cross-examination questions from our unwitting contestant. Something tells me it will be quite explosive. Without further ado, let's get crossing. The audience is shown a sign directing them to yell, "Let's get crossing," and they mumble it unenthusiastically. Belushi takes Farley's hands in his hands, and his eyes begin to roll up into his eyelids, and he says, "Okay, Mr. Lee, we have crossed over, and I have Harry Truman here with me. Go ahead and start crossing him." Farley: "I'm talking to former United States President Harry Truman, correct?" Belushi: "Correct." Farley: "And you were president during World War II, correct?" Belushi: "Correct." Farley's eyes begin to well up as he asks, "And you made the decision to drop atomic weapons on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, correct?" Belushi: "Correct." Farley: "Your decision to drop the atomic weapons caused the deaths of hundreds of thousands of innocent people, correct?" Belushi: "Correct." Farley: "So why'd you do it, huh? What made you think it was okay to kill so many innocent people?" Belushi: "Because your mom is a fat whore." Farley: "What?" Belushi: "I bombed Hiroshima because I had been briefed by the military as early as 1944 that your mom's family was there. And by 1945, Navy intelligence was able to confirm that your mother was nothing but a fat whore, so we killed her whole family." Farley gets up and attacks Belushi. The two fall to the ground and begin pummeling each other. As Belushi and Farley fight on the ground within the glass enclosure, Norm Macdonald comes back out next to Hartman while smirking and rubbing his hands together mischievously. Hartman: "Mr. Truman, wow, what can I say? You put on quite a show as you were able to get our unwitting contestant to explode in just 6 questions, which is the new all-time best Let's Get Crossing score, which entitles you to a brand new car." McDonald: "Well, thanks, Mr. Game Show Man, but I'm not allowed to drive because of all my DUIs. Plus, I'm dead. And dead from the earth, we're not alive. It's Saturday Not Alive, starring John Belushi, Chris Farley, Phil Hartman, Jan Hooks, Norm Macdonald, Gilda Radner, Denitra Vance, and many other special deceased contributors. Musical guest, Toshi Ichiyanagi, and your host, Michael Clarke Duncan. Everybody, Michael Clarke Duncan. Applause, applause, applause. Duncan: "Thank you, thank you. Thank you, I'm happy to be here. When I was trying to break into acting, I served as a bodyguard for some huge stars, including Will Smith, Martin Lawrence, Jamie Foxx, LL Cool J, and Notorious B.I.G. I guess I was too scary for the white stars. Only the brothers would hire me. Eventually, I was lucky enough to get cast in the film Armageddon. While filming, I became friends with Bruce Willis, and his influence helped me to get my role of a lifetime as John Coffey in the film The Green Mile." Applause, applause, applause. Duncan: So I want to thank Bruce for helping me the way he did. It changed my life, and I will always be grateful. Phil Hartman comes out and says, Mr. Duncan, what you said sounds lovely, but I'm afraid I have to clear up the record. Duncan, what do you mean by that? Hartman, well, you weren't really in the film The Green Mile, and you weren't really friends with Bruce Willis. Instead, you were dead the entire time. Duncan, wow, really? So when did I really die? Hartman, come with me. Cuts to Hartman and Michael Clarke Duncan entering a Victorian-style office where Norm Macdonald is sitting at a table, laboriously writing things down on a piece of parchment. Duncan, who is that? Hartman, well, Michael, that's actually your old clerk, Bob Crackett. And here you come now. John Belushi enters the office. Duncan, oh my God, I look so pale. Hartman, that's true. Sir Laurence Olivier stole all of our paint. But you should take a listen. McDonald turns to Belushi and says, Merry Christmas, Mr. Duncan. Why, I hate to be a bother, but I was hoping I could have tomorrow off, so I can tie one on during the cricket game. I have 5 pounds on the Nottinghamshire Cricket Club to cover. Belushi, I'm sorry, Bob, but I can't let you off of work on Christmas. I pay you a salary, not by the hour. If I were to give you a day off, that would mean that I wouldn't be getting as much bang for my buck. And as a savvy businessman, I can't let that happen. I'm sure you understand. There's a knock on the door. McDonald gets up and opens the door. Shows professional wrestler Sarah Lee as Mrs. Crackett and Chris Farley as Tiny Tim. McDonald, Mr. Duncan, sir, my wife and my son, the aptly named Tiny Tim, are here, and they want me to join them and go caroling. Since I have to work tomorrow on Christmas, I was hoping I could leave now an hour early. Belushi, Bobby, if I were paying you by the hour, I'd totally let you leave. But the efficiency of my decision to pay you a salary would be compromised if I were to let you leave early. McDonald, that's true, sir, but Tiny Tim is sick. Very sick in the head. Farley, I put pencils up my butt and then put the pencils up my nose so I can smell my poo-poo real good. McDonald, as you can see, he's not right in the head. So we're going to shoot him tomorrow after he opens his presents, Old Yeller style. So it would really mean a lot to me if you'd give me an extra hour to watch him shove his pencils up his nose. Belushi, I wish I cared, Bob, but I wouldn't be the 19th century wealthy businessman I am if I cared about other people. I'm sure you understand. Duncan and Hartman return to the stage. Duncan, wow, I can't believe I don't remember any of that. Hartman, I lost track of what we were doing here, by the way. Are you going to save Christmas or something? Duncan, you said I was dead all along when I got the role in Green Mile with the help of Bruce Willis. Hartman, I did? Oh, that's right. I was just fucking around. As far as I know, you were alive. Duncan, okay, then what was with that whole thing we just watched go down in that office? Hartman, well, Big Mike, I'm guessing it was pretty much just an excuse to refer to Chris Farley as Tiny Tim. Duncan, I'm tired of this monologue, boss. Hartman shrugs and leaves. Duncan, folks, we have a great show tonight. Toshi Ichiyanagi is here, so enjoy the cosmos from Cloud Atlas. We'll be right back. Rest in peace, Maureen Chenevy.